heaven and hell, the wise and the simple in heaven. 353. False intelligence and wisdom is all intelligence and wisdom that is separated from the acknowledgement of the divine, for all such as do not acknowledge the divine, but acknowledge nature in the place of the divine, think from the corporeal sensual, and are merely sensual, however highly they may be esteemed in the world for their erudition and learning. But their learning does not ascend beyond such things as appear before their eyes in the world. These they hold in the memory and look at them in an almost material way, although the same knowledges serve the truly intelligent in forming their understanding. By sciences the various kinds of experimental knowledge are meant: physics, astronomy, chemistry, mechanics, geometry, anatomy, psychology, philosophy, the history of kingdoms and of the literary world, criticism, and languages. To dignitaries of the Church who deny the divine do not raise their thoughts above the sensual things of the external man, and regard the things of the Word in the same way as others regard the sciences, not making them matters of thought or of any intuition by an enlightened rational mind, and for the reason that their interiors have been closed up, together with those exteriors that are nearest to their interiors. These have been closed up because they have turned themselves away from heaven, and have bent back those faculties that were capable of looking heavenward, which are, as has been said above, the interiors of the human mind. For this reason they are incapable of seeing what is true and good, this being to them in thick darkness, while whatever is false and evil is in light. 3. And yet sensual men can reason, some of them more cunningly and keenly than anyone else, but they reason from the fallacies of the senses confirmed by their knowledges, and because they are able to reason in this way they believe themselves to be wiser than others. The fire that kindles with affection their reasonings is the fire of the love of self and the world. Such are those who are in false intelligence and wisdom, and who are meant by the Lord in Matthew: seeing they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. Matt 13:13-15. And again, these things are hid from the intelligent and wise, and revealed unto babes. Matt 11:25-26. The sensual is the ultimate of man's life, clinging to and inhering in his bodily part. He is called a sensual man who forms all his judgments and conclusions from the bodily senses, and who believes nothing except what he sees with his eyes and touches with his hands. Such a man thinks in things outermost and not interiorly in himself. His interiors are so closed up that he sees nothing of divine truth. In a word, he is in gross natural light and thus perceives nothing that is from the light of heaven. Therefore he is inwardly opposed to all things pertaining to heaven and the Church. The learned who have confirmed themselves against the truths of the Church are sensual. The description of the sensual man: sensual men reason keenly and cunningly, since they place all intelligence in speaking from the bodily memory, but they reason from the fallacies of the senses. sensual men are more cunning and malicious than others. By the ancients such were called serpents of the tree of knowledge. 354. It has been granted me to speak with many of the learned after their departure from the world, with some of distinguished reputation and celebrated in the literary world for their writings, and with some not so celebrated, although endowed with profound wisdom. Those who in heart denied the divine, whatever their professions may have been, had become so stupid as to have little comprehension even of anything truly civil, still less of anything spiritual. I perceived and also saw that the interiors of their minds were so closed up as to appear black, for in the spiritual world such things become visible, and in consequence they were unable to endure any heavenly light or admit any influx from heaven. This blackness which their interiors presented was more intense and extended with those who had confirmed themselves against the divine by the facts of knowledge they had acquired. In the other life such accept every false thing with delight, imbibing it as a sponge dish water, and they repel all truth as an elastic bony substance repels what falls upon it. In fact, it is said that the interiors of those who have confirmed themselves against the divine and in favor of nature become bony, and their heads down to the nose appear callous like ebony, which is a sign that they no longer have any perception. Those of this description are immersed in quagmires that appear like bogs, and there they are harassed by the fantasies into which their falsities are turned. Their infernal fire is a lust for glory and reputation, which prompts them to assail one another, and from an infernal ardor to torment those about them who do not worship them as deities, and this they do one to another in turns. Into such things is all the learning of the world changed that has not received into itself light from heaven through the acknowledgment of the divine. 355. That these are such in the spiritual world when they come into it after death may be inferred from this alone, that all things that are in the natural memory and are in immediate conjunction with the things of corporeal sense, which is true of such knowledges as are mentioned above, then become quiescent, and only such rational principles as are drawn from these then serve for thought and speech. For man carries with him his entire natural memory, but its contents are not then under his view, and do not come into his thought as when he lived in the world. He can take nothing from that memory and bring it forth into spiritual light, because its contents are not objects of that light. But the rational intellectual things that man has acquired from knowledges while living in the body are in exact accord with the light of the spiritual world. Consequently, so far as the spirit of man has been made rational in the world through cognitions and facts of knowledge, it is to the same extent rational after being loosed from the body. For man is then the spirit, and it is the spirit that thinks in the body. Knowledges belong to the natural memory that man has while he is in the body. Man carries with him after death his whole natural memory from experience. But he is not able, as he was in the world, to draw anything out of that memory, for several reasons. 356. but in respect of those who have furnished themselves with intelligence and wisdom through cognitions and facts of knowledge, or such as have applied all things to the use of life, and have at the same time acknowledged the divine, loved the Word, and lived a spiritual moral life. To such the sciences have served as a means of becoming wise, and also of corroborating the things pertaining to faith. The interiors of the mind of such have been perceived by me, and were seen as transparent from light of a glistening white, flamy, or blue color, like that of translucent diamonds, rubies, and sapphires, and this in accordance with confirmations in favor of the divine and divine truths drawn from knowledges. Such is the appearance of true intelligence and wisdom when they are presented to view in the spiritual world. This appearance is derived from the light of heaven, which is divine truth going forth from the Lord, which is the source of all intelligence and wisdom. To the planes of that light, in which variegations like those of colors come into existence, are the interiors of the mind, and these variegations are produced by confirmations of divine truths by means of such things as are in nature, that is, in the sciences. For the interior mind of man looks into the things of the natural memory, and the things there that will serve as proofs it sublimates, as it were, by the fire of heavenly love, and withdraws and purifies them even into spiritual ideas. That this is the case is unknown to man as long as he lives in the body, because there he thinks both spiritually and naturally, and he has no perception of the things he then thinks spiritually, but only of those he thinks naturally. But when he has come into the spiritual world he has no perception of what he thought naturally in the world, but only of what he thought spiritually. 3. Thus is his state changed. All this makes clear that it is by means of cognitions and knowledges that man is made spiritual, also that these are the means of becoming wise, but only with those who have acknowledged the divine in faith and life. Such also before others are accepted in heaven, and are among those there who are in the middle, because they are in light more than others. These are the intelligent and wise in heaven, who shine as with the brightness of the firmament and who shine as the stars, while the simple there are those who have acknowledged the divine, have loved the Word, and have lived a spiritual, moral life, but the interiors of their minds have not been so enriched by cognitions and knowledges. The human mind is like soil which is such as it is made by cultivation. Most beautiful colors are seen in heaven. Colors in heaven are from the light there, and are modifications or variegations of that light. Thus they are manifestations of truth from good, and they signify such things as pertain to intelligence and wisdom. Next, I will post the rich and the poor in heaven 1. Please click on subscription and likes if it helps with heaven. Thank you.